Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the Weekend Wellness Hour show. I'm very excited to have a new acquaintance and guest here today who I was introduced to by my great friend Yolanda Harris. And Danielle Sunberg is joining us today. She is a transformational coach, an authentic leadership speaker, an author, and she also hosts workshops called The Power of Presence. And Danielle has an amazing journey. She has quite an interesting background going from one life to another, and I'm very excited to have her share it. I'm going to let her go through that journey just because it sounds so powerful, and I think it will inspire many of you listening today.
Oh, thank you, Amy. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I really appreciate it. Can you share with us? Because what you've done is truly amazing.
I really appreciate that. Yeah. So you just said all the things that I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was, of
Relatable.
course, a very windy road to get here.
Mm-hmm.
I started off my career as a commercial litigator for a law firm in Washington, D.C. And the reason is because I was trained to believe in the definition of success and this way of being very career focused, which I think is what we are used to growing up in the West.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have a quote unquote successful career, that meant I had to really achieve and work hard. And that meant go to law school. Well, both my parents are attorneys, so that was sort of handed to me that way.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got the law firm offer, it was like this badge of honor that, the ivory tower of my industry, so to speak, said, "You are invited, come on up,"
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, yes, I have proven my worth, my value, I'm successful. And then I waited for all of the fulfillment and the joy and satisfaction that was promised by our culture to come along with success.
Mm-hmm.
And I waited and I waited and I waited
Mm-hmm.
until my doctor and my therapist diagnosed me with depression.
Yeah.
And that is when I decided to actually take a look in the mirror. Like really, literally, I looked in the mirror. Not to brush my hair or, fix my makeup, but I just looked in my eyes. And what I saw was emptiness. There was no one home. And that is when it clicked for me that if I continue down this path, I will get sicker. It will become more than a mental, emotional wellness issue. It will become physical. It will keep manifesting. And I needed to make a change. And so after the biggest trial of my career, I was defending my client against a $6 billion judgment in St. Louis and living out of a hotel room for a month and just, doing the basically like 24-hour on-call thing,
Mm-hmm.
not exercising, not eating healthy food, just like total overwhelm, anxiety, and stress, which is just the nature of that kind of work. And when I got home to Washington, D.C. after the trial, it was like barely as soon as I walked in the door, the partner on the case called me and said, "Danielle, I've got great news. The jury came back with a verdict and we've won." And I said, "Thanks so much. I quit." And neither of us were expecting this.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't know what I was going to do after. It's not like I had done the prudent, responsible thing of lining up another job or saying I'm going to go to this other firm or try being a lawyer in this other way, or even not be a lawyer and do something else, but at least know what it is. No, didn't do any of that.
Good for you.
Yeah. Well, my parents said differently. My friends and family thought I was crazy,
Mm-hmm.
So I just packed my bags and left my apartment. I just had gotten married to my husband and we decided to backpack around the world and do the digital nomad thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just gave myself the break from what I thought was really at the level of just being burnt out to just rest and not be in that kind of corporate space anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But after that whole journey, what I learned looking back was that I was really looking for, what does it mean to be connected to who I am? What does it mean to look in the mirror and see myself and be home?
Yeah.
And that's when I got really interested in this kind of work with transformational coaching and authentic leadership speaking, and then published my book, which is really what I just told you, that whole story, all these adventure stories.
Yeah.
And that's what I wake up every day inspired to do.
That's great. So I'm curious during your journey, because I'm sure a lot happened during that time going around the world. And that sounds like that's when you started developing these skills to be able to help other people. So can we dive into that journey a little bit in terms of what did you experience? Did you have a plan? Was it kind of like that phone call, I quit and off I go to Romania, or did you have a plan for that trip around the world?
Yes and no.
Mhm.
Right. So I knew I wanted to go somewhere that was as foreign as possible in, culture, religion, food, values, fashion, humor, all of it.
Mhm.
Because even though I didn't know this at the time, what I was doing was peeling back my acculturation, or, the values in which we grow up in. And so that they're like a part of our skin. We don't even know that we have been imprinted with them, because it's like a fish swimming in water. It doesn't know it's in water. It's just part of life. Right.
Yeah.
So I was looking for a way to notice the water and then be able to say, do I like this water? What do I like about it? Where do I want to swim?
Yeah.
So that was on purpose without really understanding that was what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So the first place I went to was Thailand. And I would say the first thing that I learned was how to slow down.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you deal with this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The impact of hustle culture, of always being ramped up in our sympathetic nervous system and constantly just managing stress and anxiety and to-do lists. We never give ourselves the chance to just be.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that is so magical. And the other thing I'll just say that I noticed is, even in saying this right now to listeners, it's like, it could be an idea that we understand pretty immediately. Oh yeah, it would be a great idea to slow down and just, be present for a little bit. And then what tends to happen? We go right back into our doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We go right back into, okay, I'm going to put that on the back burner. At some point during my day, I'm going to be present. Does it happen? Maybe, maybe not, because it requires something else for us to actually implement this lost art of slowing down.
And just to piggyback on that, a lot of people feel guilty to slow down and be still, or if they do it, then their loved ones who are used to seeing them take action think they're being a lazy bum. So there's multi levels to it. And so you discovering that, I'm curious, how was your husband with that?
Great question. Yeah. I mean, sorry. Are we good?
We're good. Yeah.
Because we were in this totally foreign country and every rhythm of our life was different, it was sort of a fresh slate in which he couldn't really judge or decipher what lazy might have been, because it was just all different.
Okay.
But I will say, after a couple months of this, he started to ask, when are you going to do something? Or,
Yeah.
And like, at that point, I had gotten enough of a handle on what I was doing, and these like incredible insights were coming in for me about how important this work was, and that it was going to be something that I was going to use for the rest of my life. And so it took a lot of courage for me to say, hey, this work of slowing down isn't something that's siloed. I'm not going to ever be done.
Yeah.
There will be a part in which I do more on top of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But don't rush me. Because it's only going to result in me having to go backwards again and slow down later.
That's really smart. And it's nice that you were able to clarify that and put it in words for him too. And it was probably at the same time you were clarifying it for yourself.
Massively. Yeah. I mean, that's the gift of partnership, is a lot of the times the stuff that gets thrown up into conversations and arguments and such is the mirror that we need to then reflect on it for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. So Thailand was all about slowing down. And then
Mhm.
kind of what was your next discovery?
Hmm. Well, let's jump to Colombia.
Okay. That's a different culture
Yeah,
from Thailand. That's awesome.
totally different. We really were craving solitude and silence and nature. And so we picked this very rural town outside Medellin, probably about 45 minutes in this huge national forest area with this like beautiful community that were all really connected through their spiritual practice and their shaman tribe that lived with them.
Okay.
And so every so often on their calendar, they would get together and do ceremonies together and really be in their communal growth and healing and bonding over whatever the community was going through, grief of the lost one or celebration of a marriage, whatever. And so I'll say after I quit my law firm, I hugely dove into psychedelics and became 100% psychonaut. And really it was because of how liberating it felt. I had just left this very like constricting world of rules and the law firm, and you have to show up in life a certain way and like be your Brooks Brothers or your Ann Taylor suit and have your hair just so, and right, like everything was just so. And so when I left that, I was like, yeah, I kind of want to try what all of these different psychedelics might offer me and like the freedom of it. And I became a huge fan and decided that I was going to reject rules, like society's rules out the window. I'm going to live for me, right?
Mhm.
So I'm sitting in this ceremony, which is the first time I'm attending an indigenous ceremony by a shaman who's like really, grew up in it, steeped in it. It's his culture. And there was a lot of rules. So you couldn't lay down, you couldn't sleep, you couldn't talk, you couldn't leave when you wanted, you couldn't dance, you couldn't, go to the fridge and see, like let the orange juice carton come alive for a few minutes or anything like that. You had to sit there and listen to the music and sing if you want, but that's it. And I felt myself going, no rules. Okay.
Yeah.
But of course I followed it because I'm more than I am going to, reject rules. I'm going to be respectful.
Yeah.
So I followed along with the ceremony, and what showed up for me there was how much we live in these paradigms of good, bad, right, wrong. Rules are good. I will live by no rules, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And how in doing that, we are still so attached to the paradigm. So the annoying thing about saying, I'm not going to live by rules, I reject rules, that's a rule, right?
Yes, it is.
So annoying.
Yes.
So it like showed up very clearly for me that true freedom, true liberation is being able to dance lightly and use these things in life as frameworks that we can build on, as opposed to having to push and rage against something or need something in order to be okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like you're feeling some resistance. There's books out there that talk about this resistance that we feel inside us, and you're learning how to navigate it. That's amazing. Wow. So Colombia, what a deeper dive into spirituality and learning who you are and your paradigms. That's incredible. Okay, so what came next?
Well, I'll say we came back to the States a couple of times.
Okay.
And when I came back to the States, there was this overwhelming self-doubt that who I had managed to unearth across the ocean and build a foundation to be this, authentic person who could stand on her own. Yeah. Well, now that I was back in all the acculturation, steeped back in the goldfish back in the water of the States, how would I be able to withstand falling back into old patterns? So when I visited friends in DC, now, I'm this like hippie wearing flip-flops and not straightening my hair, not putting on makeup, wearing like flowy stuff. And I'm walking through Farragut Square, which is like where all the lobbyists are and the financial firms and law firms, and everyone is like the cliche corporate drone, right? So it's lunchtime and there's, lots of pedestrians walking around to get lunch at, whatever Sweet Green or place. And I'm walking like this, like with my flowy whatever. And I'm like feeling that, oh my God, I do not fit in. And how do I feel about that? And feeling the contraction in that. And so that was a really great experience of the coming back into life and how to stay in self-trust and grounded in what I know I want and believe of who I am.
Yeah. And that's scary because you made a radical transformation from how you were probably could fit in with these people to an other extreme. And then now it's a matter of who are you really? You just went from one paradigm to another, from one lifestyle to another. Now, where do you fall? What's your true essence? Like, how did you find that out?
Exactly. I mean, to be honest, it's ever dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Like who we are is allowed to show up differently every day.
Yeah.
So sometimes I see these women who have a lot of what I really love in the spiritual space, and being like really just steeped in that woo-woo spirituality, and they wear the flowy mala beads and the turquoise, and they just like, there's nothing corporate about them. And I'm like, oh, I would love to be like that and look like that. Yeah. And I tried it, right? But then there's a part of me that like loves a blazer, and I just feel powerful and sharp, and like, it's just, ooh, it's that, like I'm really focused. So I'm not that woman who's just going to wear turquoise beads all day, but I'm also not the woman who's going to wear an Ann Taylor suit everywhere and show up in high heels and have my hair always done perfectly. So some days I am more like one, and some days I'm more like the other. And some days I'm just wearing like a milk stained sweatshirt because my 3-year-old has thrown up on me, and that's all there is, So it's more of just like a constant attunement to what's showing up today, and who are we really needing to pull out of ourselves today.
Yeah. Well, and it's nice because that allows you to be flexible, to adjust. You're going to find less resistance that's bombarding you because you have to be a certain person and act a certain way all the time. So
that's the rules.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And in a way, it allows you to slow down to assess, okay, who am I going to be today? Who am I going to show up to be? That's great. This is amazing. Okay. So for you now, after going through these experiences and that, how do you define success? Because it started out something, the corporate ladder, the grades, the lifestyle, you gave it all up. So what is success now to you then?
So yeah, success was very much prestige, status, wealth, but that wasn't really what it is. What it was having the external validate me. So being able to look in other people's eyes and see that they respected me, that they thought I was worth my value, that I was intelligent, credible, competent, right? That was success. But eventually, what I saw in other people's eyes wasn't enough, because when I looked in my own eyes, I saw emptiness, right? So I can say that success has shifted from those things, but what it's really shifted from is being able to look in the mirror at my own eyes and feel connected to myself, to feel just fine with whoever is looking back at me.
Yeah. I can understand that. And the feeling that you get, being able to recognize yourself and feeling connected to yourself, helps you soar, I can imagine.
Yeah. So, if you feel connected to who you are, which is, what I call coming home, I think that term is vague enough yet precise enough to encapsulate what it means to feel like, oh, at ease and just being in your own skin and being fine with who you are. When you're home, then it doesn't matter where you are in the world, right? And it doesn't matter what life brings. It doesn't matter with the context, because you're home. You're always going to know how to find home.
Yeah. So, and as you go through this and as you went through this experience, I'm sure you can reflect back and see kind of the steps you took and you're analyzing that. How do you help other people achieve this when they may not be able to go around the world and experience these other cultures, or it may not be part of their comfort zone?
I say this in the introduction of my book, that for me, traveling is what it took to get here. But our life experience is just the envelope in which all of this wisdom can drop in for us. And it doesn't matter what envelope it is. It doesn't matter whether you're traveling, staying home, a corporate career, a stay-at-home mom. It does not matter. All of that is your envelope, right? That's all our life experience. And these aha moments, this connection to self, can drop in anytime, anywhere, right? It's like why we have those, oh, how did I not see that before moments when we're in the shower, right? Like it doesn't matter where you are. So the book itself is a tool for folks, because even though it's my story, it's really about you and your power and your connection to yourself. And so while you go along with me and we hike the Ho Chi Minh trails in Vietnam and we sail the Greek islands together, what's really happening with the reflection questions is that you're being guided on your own process of unearthing your own wisdom. And that is connection to self. So the wisdom that comes in for me, I'm not prescriptive. It doesn't have to be yours. But what is given in the tool of the book is a way to come home for yourself all the time, no matter what. Like you learn through these questions how to reflect, slow down, and ask yourself, who am I in this paradigm? Who do I want to be? How does this show up to me? How does this impact my relationships with my family, with my career, with my kids? What am I going to do about it?
Yeah. And I can imagine, especially if you're going through these types of transformations, it's good to communicate with your family to let them know, or because it could create some friction.
Yeah. So we have unwittingly made commitments to conformity and consistency, whether we realize it or not, right? And who we show up as in the world. Like when we go and we meet someone and we shake their hand, you say, hi, nice to meet you, Amy. I'm Danielle. What we're really saying is, I believe you are who you say you are, if you believe that I am who I say I am. And then we come into contract essentially under you be this person and I'll be this person. But if I want to shift how I show up, you're going to feel betrayed.
Yeah.
And so it can cause a lot of conflict when something can show up for us and we're like, oh, this would cause a lot of, dominoes at work or with my family if I really express this. So I'm just going to suppress it. I'm going to keep it over here.
Yeah.
A lot of us do that. And we have these like mounting piles of wisdom waiting for us.
And that's hard because kind of one of the prized values, I would say, in interactions and relationships is a person being authentic. Because when someone's authentic, they're vulnerable. And there's a trust that can happen between the two people that are in whatever type of relationship it is. So if we're constantly suppressing these aspects of ourselves, how do we be authentic? How do we show up as ourselves?
You're exactly right. We have somehow decided that authentic actually means be the person you agreed to be. Because when you shift from being that person, that feels off as the viewer, as the other person watching you. Why are you being inauthentic, Amy? Like, shoot, I think I'm being more authentic, but we're not trained how to do this work. And so how do we know? Right?
Exactly. It's hard. It's hard because you want to do well, you want to treat people well. You know, for the most part, people have the urge to behave in a way that's, accepted. But at the same time, how do you show up truly in an authentic way? Do you have answers? Did you find them on your travels?
I mean, it's honestly this willingness to shift our commitment from consistency and conformity to self-trust, to putting our own authenticity as the top of our to-do list.
Yeah.
And then using those pieces of wisdom that come up as our North Stars. So it's shifting our compass from external to internal and saying, no matter what happens, I will vet life through my internal compass, my value system, which is what I've been saying as North Stars.
Yeah.
And that is a fire, right? Like that can cause issues. And I'm not saying it won't, and I'm not saying there's a way to avoid them. Like, let that be clear. There is a giant warning sign that this trip it's not all roses and rainbows.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. And I can imagine it doesn't just happen overnight too. Like trying to find your internal guidance and the authentic person of who you are and how you're going to lead your life. And as you said several times, it's a journey and it continues to evolve. So this can be a struggle. And I imagine sometimes it's nice to have someone to guide them through that, kind of like you, since you help people through this, right?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Yeah. So I work with people, individuals, and also organizations through this process of learning to orient internally and have that be the way that we lead our lives forward. Because at the end of the day, when we look back at our legacies, it's not going to be about how many zeros are in our bank account or how much we increased profits by last quarter, right? It's going to be the model of life that we created that we're passing down to our families, to our community, that sees this is the life this person led.
Yeah.
Right. So, I was going to say that right now I'm really going through it myself as a mother. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Oh.
So all of this work that I've done, a lot of this work that I've done was before having kids.
Yeah. Okay.
So you kind of like get into a groove with things and then life changes, whether it's having kids or whatever. It could be the pandemic, anything. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have to apply all of this to a completely different canvas. And so I'm learning it all again.
Yeah.
It's a little bit easier, right? I have the tools, I have the practice, I have, my own state of awareness to come home to, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean by it's a constant journey in life, that it's never done. It's never going to be a degree that you hang on your wall. It's not like, okay, this is what Danielle Sunberg does now, so she's perfect at it. Like, that's not it. It's about creating and sustaining confidence, self-trust, so that whatever life does throw at us, motherhood, whatever, I can say, I'm built for this. I know how to navigate this. This is all going to be okay.
That's great. And I imagine with motherhood too, it adds a whole nother complexity because you have these little ones who just behave, who just act the way that they are. They're acting their authentic way, and you learning to navigate that and to guide them, but also I imagine you're learning a lot about yourself as well as you go through that journey. That's different from when it was just you and your husband, different from when it was just you going up the corporate ladder. There's a lot of differences in all of that.
Yeah, their schedule is not my schedule. It doesn't matter to them that I'm half done with an email. Like they don't care. They're not going to sit and wait,
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, and that requires, again, slowing down and being like, okay,
Mhm.
this email, is it really something that I need to send right now, or can it wait?
Mhm.
And usually it waits. And I'll say that usually because I've slowed down, done whatever with my kids, prepare their lunch, put them down for a nap, whatever, and like had the space to just be with them, which is what is really a magical
Yeah.
part of having kids, is you drop into presence when you're playing with them.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and I have this beautiful aha moment about what I really want to say in that email, or a new idea that I
Mhm.
then get to share because I didn't rush through sending it and, just wait one more minute and all that. No.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's neat to see you've gone through these transitions in life. And one of the things that I often see in people as they're going through life, they have a lot of blame, they have a lot of self-doubt. They have this idea that who they are is who they're always going to be and they can't change. And I'm curious, kind of your thoughts on how do you get people to start realizing that there is potential for them to change. They kind of have to change their mindset to be open to learning a new way of existing.
Well, what happened for me was I had to suffer enough that I didn't
Mhm.
want to suffer anymore. And unfortunately, fortunately, whatever you want to, however you look at it, suffering is a great teacher in this. Like it is one of the most powerful tools for us to be like, I'm at my threshold, something needs to change. And the reason that it works is because if we're not committed, we're not going to do it. Right.
Mhm.
And so in order for us to feel that alignment of commitment, sometimes that just means that we have to reach our level, our threshold of what suffering looks like. And that could be, being handed with divorce. It could be being diagnosed with cancer. It could be
Mhm.
something that great before we're willing to say, okay, this is really important that I do start doing this work.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be more subtle or less of like a hugely life altering issue. Like for me, it was
Mhm.
depression.
Yeah.
Some people have I would say, less acute threshold, like they're more attuned to subtler suffering levels. And
Yeah.
so that it takes less for them to be like, oh, I'm gonna change.
Mhm.
And I don't
Yeah.
judge either way, like whatever level is your level, and that's what's gonna take.
Yeah. And do you find that you have to work with people on kind of their self beliefs and self talk as well as they're going through this transformational process?
So one of the biggest things that I do, whether
Mhm.
my clients realize it or not, is that I hold an energetic frequency of you are able to do this. I only take clients in which I know I can hold that frequency for. Like you are powerful. You can do this. You can achieve your dreams. You don't have to live in a way where you feel disconnected and tight and stressed and overwhelmed and depressed and all of that. And if I can hold that, what it naturally does is allows the person to rise up to that space in themselves, right?
Yeah.
And allows them the space to feel safe to do it. So yeah, sometimes we talk explicitly about, limiting beliefs
Yeah.
and walk through them and navigate those. But
Mhm.
a lot of the work is energetic,
Okay.
because most of who we are as humans is energetic.
We are, yes. And so can we talk a little bit more about that and the energy work that you do with people? Is this something that you developed through your travels? Is that something that came afterwards when you realized the importance of all that?
Both. Okay, so let's walk this through.
Sure,
So,
sure.
okay, I fundamentally believe, first of all, that we are all very connected to the movement of energy and
Mhm.
are able to consciously move it on our own. Some people do that as their professional career. They're acupuncturists, they're Reiki
Mhm.
practitioners, they're mediums.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we have an experience in which we've done it ourselves, but we don't know how to frame it or understand it. And so we just kind of go, that was weird. Right. And that can be something as simple as a hug. Okay. Right. Like a hug actually will change your state. Right.
Yeah.
And so we're offering that hug energy, that compassion, that I love you, whatever it means when we give the hug to someone, and then they feel it. Right. So we're actually translating energy back and forth all the time. So what happened really was during my travels, when I got to slow down, I slowed down more deeply into this phenomenon and could not get enough. And so I trained to be a Reiki master because it felt like, okay, we're all born Harry Potter, but I want to actually go to Hogwarts and learn how to use it.
Yeah.
So I became a Reiki master so I could graduate from my version of Hogwarts.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah. So I don't actually practice Reiki in my work in the traditional sense where someone's on a like massage bed and the work is being done. It's just the fundamentals of understanding translation of energy.
Nice. Well, that's great. And so do you work with people through in person or virtual?
Both.
Okay. Okay. So, and
mostly
even,
virtual.
Okay. And even with virtual, you can still work through energy, even from across a distance.
Yeah. So that's a funny one because people really, you can lose them there.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
But what I'll say to that is, well, first of all, we're not actually doing Reiki. So we're just having conversations, and you can have a conversation, obviously, with virtual. Here we are.
Yeah.
But if you really do care about, what is the deal with this virtual energy? How does that work? Just think about prayer.
Yeah.
Like when you pray, you're praying for someone who probably isn't in the same room as you. And you're not praying and then saying it's not going to work because they're not in the same room as me.
Yes.
Right.
That's true. You're right. It's a good analogy. Yeah, absolutely. So this is amazing. Okay. And then how does this work in a group setting for you? Because you say you do workshops as well. So you're working on helping people transform in these workshops as well, or is it a different topic when you talk about the power of presence?
Yeah, it's the power of presence is the workshop.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's all about being focused in the here and now.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. That's wonderful. And then in the corporate world, are you working with groups of people when you're helping businesses and companies?
Yeah, it's going into different types of organizations and talking about authentic leadership and essentially what I call navigating this authentic leadership path. And the path has its own framework. So the P is presence, right? No surprise.
Yes. Okay.
So it gives us the chance to first slow down so that we can actually orient ourselves to where we're walking.
Yeah.
The A is awareness, because when we slow down, we create all of this space for aha moments to show up. Right. Because when we're rushing through life, we don't even see clearly what's happening and what's around us. Everything is a blur. So when we actually slow down, all the information that's right here becomes available. Then the T is trust. So that's all about what we were talking about with shifting our commitment from consistency and conformity to self-trust and saying this awareness has showed up for me. And if it is inconsistent with what I should do or what I would normally do, which way am I going to go? Like that's how you walk that path. And so it's learning how to cultivate how to lean into self-trust. And then the H is home, which we talked about.
Yeah, coming home. That's great. Oh, that's wonderful. And I'm sure the people listening in these different corporations probably they can take something from that and start to implement it right away. Like what you're talking about and giving examples and you showing us your journey starts to get people thinking about their own. And that's what we need examples to help us change.
So yeah, so there is so much data starting to come out from, I don't remember what the statistic is, I think McKinsey, about it's a Harvard Business Review, did a study, and all of these businesses that participated in this study and slowed down, pausing at really key moments to assess decisions that they were going to make, found a 40% increase in profit after after doing this continuously for 2 years.
Wow.
40% increase in profit and sales. And so, yeah, then there is another team. This was the McKinsey statistic. Okay, so the McKinsey statistic is that teams that felt like they could show up as themselves, like be authentic at work, saw a reduction in sick days, increase in job performance, right? Wanting to go above and beyond their actual, threshold of what their role required them.
Yeah.
So we see all the data that shows that this kind of work is really impactful, not just for the individual, but for the organization. Yet a lot of the types of like corporate wellness and different programs that come in are really focusing on how to restructure and do different types of like what I call outside in work.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying it's great. We should have everything available.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about with the path is more inside out work. It's helping the individual feel empowered to show up at work authentically and be able to aha ideas that they have without the risk of having their head cut off, and let that lead to market breaking results and amazing, creative innovations that wouldn't be available otherwise. So it's about the individual showing up to transform the business to then transform the world.
Yeah. And the power in that too is people can contribute, because you see so often people say, I go to my job, I do what I'm supposed to do, I leave, I repeat. And they don't feel like they have ownership in the business and the customers and the clients, because they're just doing something that they were trained to do and they show up. It's so different when you start getting them to look inside and show up differently. They become involved and you can see that excitement in them, and it's just a different experience for them.
As you're saying that, I visualize in my mind that the web, connecting us all, like really strengthening. And that I think is exactly what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been amazing. Is there anything that we didn't cover related to your journey and discovery that I didn't get a chance to ask you or didn't think to ask you that would be valuable for people listening?
I think that we covered a really beautiful array of it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is amazing. So, okay, so you coach people, you do workshops, and you work with businesses. Someone listening wants to get in touch with you. What's the best way for them to do that?
Oh, just shoot me an email. I would love it.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you tell us your email? And your email
Danielle.
is?
Yeah, it's Danielle, DANIELLE at followourleap.com.
Okay. Thank you.
And you can also just get there from my website, from the contact form on my website, which is my name, DanielleSunberg.com.
Okay, that's great. That's nice, so people can reach out to you, because I can imagine even if people haven't gone on your specific journey, they may be wanting to change their life, their career, their relationships, and the topics that you talk about cover all of that. Right. It will help them, guide them through that process. And you have a great personality to help people go through this, because you've done it yourself. You understand the ups and downs and the roller coaster. So it's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Yeah, it's been really fun. And it's just really fun to wake up and love doing what I do. So if you as a listener are like, oh, maybe I will, I'm going to put it on my to-do list. Go for it. What can't hurt? Exactly. The thing is, when you get around people who are loving their life and what they do, you get drawn to that. And you're like, okay, how do I get that? How do I create that? And it's about that purpose and identity and self-trust and all those things that you talked about. So I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been fun.
And thank you all for joining us. Please check out Danielle's website. I've looked at it. She has a lot of great information on there and just shares kind of her journey a little bit more. And please go get her book. It sounds amazing. I haven't read it yet, but I'll have to get it. So Atlas of Being, please go check that out. There she has it right there in her hand. So it sounds like an amazing, amazing book, just because you know you're going to be learning some stuff about yourself and her. So thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you again next week. Take care. Bye now.